The narrative that I keep hearing now, and I'm not going to lie to you, I've participated in it myself, but this narrative that I keep hearing these days is this young generation, man, they don't have any work ethic. They're lazy. All they want to do is sit around and play video games, talk about their feelings and their anxieties, and they've been so offended. A question that has to be addressed at some point is, who raised this generation? The answer to that is primarily women. Seems to me Dad wasn't in the home. The trouble with that is nobody wants to have this conversation. A great book on this topic is called The Respondent. It's written by Greg Ellis. It's filled with his personal story. It's a true story. Statistics. What's going on with the generation today. You keep hearing, or I keep hearing the same narrative over and over. The boys are feminine. They won't move out. All they want to do is play video games, and they're lazy, and they've been primarily raised by women in broken homes, and now it's a feelings-based thing. These are feminine traits. Feelings, anxiety. It's just too much. I need a safe space. Let me tell you something. I have worked with numerous people of this generation in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and I've had outstanding results. Some really good workers, a lot of them better workers than people my age or, the in-between. I'm Generation X, by the way. I saw this coming many years ago. I remember going through Lowe's looking for materials or whatever, and as a Christmas gift display, they used to sell like workbenches and fake tools and weed eaters and stuff, and in this center display they had barbecues, because Dad grills now. He doesn't do a whole lot outside. We just hire that done. The trouble with that is you're not teaching your young boys to be men. I'm letting the FDA off the hook a little bit here for now, but they have blood on their hands as well. I mean, they've put additives in the waters and additives in the foods, and we know that they're on the take at this point. It's just a matter of how much money do the corporations have to pay the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to allow them to put, toxic waste in the shampoos and the deodorants, and you're starting to see the effects of that. We've had 4 generations now. Since the 1960s, we've seen this quote-unquote equal rights. I have no problem with equality, except that it isn't equal, and it isn't going to be equal. Men and women are totally different genders, and there are no others. Sorry. Well, not really. These are just the facts. If you want to reproduce, you need 2 genders. Any byproduct of that is just the imaginative work of universities, and you're struggling for government grant money. I understand, but the facts remain the facts. But back to the equality thing. Equality of what? Outcomes? Are we going to legislate how people speak and refer to one another? I mean, you're flirting with disaster. You're not even flirting with it at this point. It's a full-on courtship. Dad has to be in the home. Women are phenomenal at nurturing and the initial stages of toddlers, infants, age 0 to, maybe 7. They are a much needed piece of the puzzle. Yeah, it's a two-piece puzzle. It takes men to raise young boys through adolescence and puberty if you want any kind of society after that. Well, we've gotten away from that. Nobody wants to have this conversation. So Dad's been taken out of the picture. And I know I'm painting with broad strokes, I understand that. But look at the statistics. Look what happened to the black community in the 1960s. where the fathers of these children were replaced with a government check. And look at the results of that. absolutely disastrous. Now you're seeing it nationwide. Doesn't matter what race you are. So what happens to a society without men in it? Or where men and dads have been relegated to this, if you're lucky, this second-class type citizen. The all-powerful, strong, independent woman. Well, how come you can't raise men? How come you can't turn little boys into men? And you can't. Let's be clear about that. What you're starting to see now is the societal breakdown without men, or without men who have been properly trained and raised. So all of the infrastructure it takes to make a nation and the maintenance thereof, that is done primarily by men, was in the past. But now that these women have raised boys to the age where they're of age to be an adult, they don't want to work with their hands. They don't want to get dirty. They're going to code, and they're going to deal in the humanities, the liberal arts. What's going to happen when there's no one left to maintain the systems? You know, to fix the roads and keep the trash trucks operational where they can pick that stuff up. Oh, we're going to automate it all. You can't even make a car at this point that drives itself. Nor should you, by the way. But now we're seeing it. We're seeing generations now where dad has had, you know, the every other weekend and maybe a midweek visit influence in these kids' lives. And look at the results of it. Doesn't look promising. But nobody wants to have this conversation. Strong and independent. I know. How's come it is then that you got to call a man when something breaks? Or when the power lines go down, you call a man. When the road needs paved, you call a man. When something heavy needs moved, you need a man. Sooner or later, we're going to have to face the facts. Dad needs to be in the home. If not, if there's a separation of adults, I get it. Sometimes things can't be helped. But this business of automatic default where mom gets the kids, we've seen the results, and they are disastrous. So check this book out if you get a chance. I think every young man that's considering marriage ought to read this book. And perhaps every older guy. And see what could be in store for you. Because the laws, which are actually slowly, painfully slowly changing, it's been needed for 30 years. 30 years ago, we needed drastic intervention to revamp a system, the family court system. Get you a read of this. Here, listen to this. And I'm just a little. They kidnapped his children, stole his freedom, shattered his family. Greg Ellis's harrowing true story is one shared by millions of fathers and boys forsaken and harmed by the American divorce machine. We're going to come back and revisit this topic later. Consider this like a precursor, a primer. It takes women to birth children and to nurture them. But it takes men to raise them into successful adults, especially young men. That's all for right now. I thank you for watching, and I appreciate your time.